Hello there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Jedi Knights. I'm your host, Christian Buckley, joined across the HoloNet by my co-host, my Chewy, Mike Connors.
I don't know who created the internet, but they need to rename it to the HoloNet.
Yeah, like who? I mean, okay. So was the concept, or at least the name, HoloNet, was that introduced in like prequel era? Because I don't think they ever talked about that in the OT.
I don't think they talked about it in the OT. I'm not sure if it was like still part of the canon though, like before the prequels. I think it may have just been a prequel era thing that they introduced. The confusing thing about the HoloNet to me is that I'm not sure if it acts like an internet or like a broadcast service or like both, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in the world of Star Wars, with the ability to write the Force to be any sort of outlet for any problem, the HoloNet is probably the internet as flexible as we can think it could be.
You're probably right. Yeah.
How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good, Christian. How are you?
Doing all right. You know, we're still living the Star Wars life in these times of doubt.
It's been a good opportunity to like do some more deep Star Wars investigation, you know?
For sure, yeah. Any progress on Kotor?
Honestly, not much progress on Kotor because I've been playing a little bit more Battlefront 2.
Ooh.
I'm very slow and deliberate with my gaming, I guess.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm not trying to like rush through it really.
I totally understand that. For somebody who like covers games in my free time, I'm so slow. Like I Final Fantasy VII came out April 10th, still not done with it. It's not a long game.
Well, I mean, what I understand, the Final Fantasy games are like super dense, right?
Yeah, this one's kind of linear, but like I'm taking my time.
Right. So. Yeah, well, that makes sense that you still haven't finished it yet. But
yeah.
Well, welcome to the Final Fantasy podcast.
Well, if we want to switch it up, talking Star Wars games, I've also been messing a little more. Last week I talked about Star Wars Galaxies, and after recording last week, I squatted up with two of my friends, Zach and Brandon. I was like, guys, let's try this. I downloaded a PC game. A PC game.
Yeah.
Star Wars: The Old Republic.
That's pretty cool. So you were playing with some other folks.
Yeah, so I was playing Galaxies with both of them as well, and then we decided to try upgrading like 15 years of an MMO.
Yeah.
And it's been fun. I pledged my allegiance to the Sith. I made a Zabrak Sith Marauder. No, Sith Juggernaut.
Okay, cool.
It's been fun. I probably put maybe like 10 hours in over the past week.
Have you finished like the tutorial yet?
Yeah, I'm off world. I finished the first like arc. I have a master now. I seeded his former apprentice. So it's been cool. It's interesting. I don't know how deep I'm gonna go with it, but seeing the scale of the Old Republic and a story focused on the Sith, I think is really interesting because I typically skew Jedi.
Right. Yeah, so why did you choose Sith over Jedi if you're normally skewed toward the Jedi?
Honestly, it's because I normally skew Jedi. Like, I think with something like a Fallen Order, where they have this very deliberate, focused message and story with Cal and the Jedi Order, that's a nice experience there. But with something that's flexible, and it's made by BioWare, so you do have a lot of choices and agency
True.
in the way you tackle situations. But yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm not super familiar with the Old Republic era outside of a handful of characters, so maybe get the perspective of the Sith and the Sith army, see what that's like. And it's been really interesting just seeing the way that this proto-empire has their allegiances in line based on the like superiority of pureblood Sith culture. It's really fascinating, honestly.
Yeah, those games like get really into the lore. I think they really built it off of like the Knights of the Old Republic and stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, that's cool that you picked a Zabrak though.
Yeah. Well, I played the free version, and they give you like 3 choices for your race. Um, and Zabrak was one of them. All 3 of us, me and my 2 friends, are all Zabrak because
Nice,
it
cool.
was that or human. Um, but I saw you could get Kit Fisto's species. I forget what it's called. It's like Octillery or something.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it's cool though. It's a cool MMO. If your computer can handle it. Unfortunately, it's only on PC, not on Mac. So I
So,
can recommend it.
the free version of the game is actually pretty dense. Like that, they have a lot of the expansions, right?
So I believe you go up to level 60 in the free version. You have all the base story content. So what shipped with the game is free. And obviously, like you don't earn stuff at like a fast pace because they want you to level or like get a subscription so you can access the bonus content and like the XP modifiers and stuff like that. But from what I've played, it's fun. I'll probably at least see through the story of my Zabrak. I don't know about the expansions, but it's been cool.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
I don't have access to my PC right now, but once I do, I will make sure that I start playing this game again because I actually enjoyed it while I was playing it.
Yeah, it's
We could squat up,
absolutely.
except we couldn't. Could we?
So I don't know, but they let you make 4 characters in the free version, so I will make a Jedi or at least Republic character eventually. But
True.
yeah, it's cool. The MMO stuff was a little off-putting at first, because I typically don't play games like that. The closest is like Destiny, maybe. But quickly, especially playing with friends, I think it helped a lot to like just get into the world and experience the story. So
yeah, it had a Knights of the Old Republic vibe for me when I played it.
Yeah,
which is cool.
If you're a fan of that, check it out
for sure.
But you know what you and I are both fans of?
Star Wars?
Yes, absolutely. But more specifically, The Mandalorian.
Right.
Every week we're just graced with some Mando news.
Yeah. So what's the news this week, Christian?
So we have a couple little nuggets. First off, I'm not sure if we got this. I think this might have happened mid-recording last week. We may have mentioned it, don't remember. But Katie Sackhoff, the voice actor of Bo-Katan in Rebels and Clone Wars, has been cast to play Bo-Katan in live action for Mando Season 2.
That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. Is that like confirmed?
I can double check, but I'm pretty sure it was like a Variety report or something.
Very cool.
Are you familiar with her live action work?
I have never seen her live action.
Really?
I mean, well, maybe I have. I have no idea.
So,
what's her name again?
Katie Sackhoff. Right. Have you seen a show called Battlestar Galactica?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's Starbuck.
Oh, she plays Starbuck.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
That's pretty cool.
So yes, it looks like Slash Film, Sci-Fi Wire, IGN all reporting that yes, she is cast as Bo-Katan.
That's cool. So she does the voice for her though.
Yes. So it's cool. It's an interesting choice, I think, with what we can look to recently, where Rosario Dawson was cast as Ahsoka when Ashley Eckstein voices the character and has forever. But then someone like Katie Sackhoff, who was introduced in season 3 or 4 of Clone Wars, was granted, I guess, right of first refusal, and she said, yes, I want this, maybe.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think Ashley Eckstein really had much like acting experience.
Like live action stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be it. Because
Katie Sackhoff does.
Yeah, and I think the role of Starbuck, as someone who's seen Battlestar, and you have as well, in line with the probably physical demands of what Bo-Katan is going to be doing in Mando,
Right, totally.
So very similar character in terms of the attitude, very hardened soldier, cocky. Um, good pick though, obviously.
Yeah, I mean that's great. I for some reason I don't know why I didn't realize that she was Starbuck, but yeah, knowing that now, that's a great pick.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm wondering at this point how much crossover there's going to be between these characters that we know are coming back and their prior relationships between each other. Like, do you think her episode is the same episode as Ahsoka's, or is it the same episode as Boba Fett's? Like, I feel like you could do an interesting plot with both options, if not this all the same episode. But
do you think we're gonna see this show like delve into like doing arcs?
I think maybe yes. I could see Mando this time. Let's say they have 9 episodes. They had 8 before, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So let's say they have 9, right? Each one's still half an hour. I think they could probably run with what worked before and maintain the sort of spirit of this is an individual story within the season, and probably do like 3 episode arcs of each one being half an hour still. Like, okay, this is the arc with Boba Fett. This is the arc with Bo-Katan. This is the arc with Ahsoka. You know?
Yeah. Now here's the question: do you have different directors for each of those episodes, or do you have like the same director, like direct an arc?
That's tricky because I think, especially with television, a lot of it still comes down to the showrunner and producers to maintain like the sort of consistency.
Right. Yeah.
Where directing for TV is a little more, you can get not axed, but like you can get replaced for the next episode when you're in the middle of telling a story, you know, because like Bryce Dallas Howard didn't write her episode, you know, like Jon Favreau Filoni did.
That's true.
So she gets to bring her style behind the camera to that episode, but not necessarily.
I don't know. I guess like, but wouldn't you want to see as a director, if you're only directing a third of the story, wouldn't you want to like fulfill your vision throughout like that one story?
Yeah, if it was me, I would probably be like, yeah, please give me 3 episodes. Give me a 90-minute or almost, 30, 90-minute story within Star Wars to direct fully for TV. Yeah, please. But I think season 1 proved that we can still tell an overarching narrative eventually across a multitude of directors.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to see that for season 2. I'm not sure. Maybe we will. But I don't know. It's an interesting thought experiment for me.
Yeah.
To think like what would happen if one director was able to direct 3 episodes in a row, but who knows? Probably not. Maybe
we'll get there eventually. It sounds like, or at least it sounded like that's the direction Obi-Wan was going. So maybe it's a case to case for each show.
True. Well, Deborah Chow's just doing the Obi-Wan show, right?
Yes.
Right.
So, you know what will be in Mando season 2 though consistently?
The Mandalorian.
Of course. And guess who he's going to be facing off against?
Not Baby Yoda.
No, but Timothy Oliphant.
Okay.
Do you know who that is?
No.
Why don't you do a quick Google search, see if he looks familiar, because I'm sure he will.
Timothy what?
Olyphant.
Okay.
He was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He was in Fargo. He was in a few episodes of The Office. He was in a Die Hard film. So he's been around as an actor. You've probably seen him somewhere.
Sure. He looks really generic.
Yeah. So I'm curious as to what his role will be in Mando season 2. If it will be recurring, if it will be a one-off. But like we said when we started talking Mando today, the Mando news does not stop, and this is more of it.
Yeah, I guess that whoever this guy is, he's also a descendant of the Vanderbilt family. So there you go. Now there's a Vanderbilt in Star Wars.
Do you have any thoughts on this outside of that?
Seems fine. Is he like specifically cast as a villain?
No, I just kind of figured based on his prior roles. He has like a smarminess to him that I feel like could fit well. Maybe he's like a gangster or something. I don't know. But I think he could fit in a nice, like, maybe not recurring Moff Gideon sort of role, but maybe more of like a, oh, you, thorn in my side.
Yeah, true. I would have expected that the second season that its main, villain is going to be Giancarlo Esposito's character.
Yeah. I think that's safe to assume. Maybe he could be an underling, or again, maybe just like a side arc of like, okay, now we're dealing with this gangster that kidnapped Baby Yoda, like something like that. I don't know.
No more capturing a Baby Yoda.
Oh, it's gonna happen. That thing can't walk yet.
I know. Do you think there's going to be a time skip between Mando season 1 and 2 where Baby Yoda has some time to age up?
I don't know. Maybe. But I can't imagine they want to jump too far ahead in the post episode 6 period yet,
Fair enough. Yeah.
Like, because if they jump like 10 years and stuff is the same, it's like, okay, so what happened? Is the Academy up and running yet? Like, I feel like that brings up so many more questions for the greater universe at that point.
Oh, what if the show ends with the Mandalorian having to bring this child to the Jedi Temple?
But that means Ben Solo kills it.
Whatever.
Who knows? Maybe. We'll see what happens with that.
I don't know. Just a thought.
One last little nugget for Mandalorian, though. Gary Whitta. You know Gary Whitta.
Yeah, of course.
He wrote Rogue One.
He did.
If you're not familiar, if you don't follow him on Twitter, he has been in quarantine hosting a late night talk show on Twitch. I believe it's just twitch.tv/Gary Whitta. Entirely produced in Animal Crossing. Where you laugh. Me and Kevin Diaz, who both host Gamescast, right? On our episode of Gamescast where we went over Animal Crossing, like 2 months ago, we did it in Animal Crossing, and then like a month later, Gary Whitta was like, the first ever talk show. I was like, okay, dude, okay.
Not the first ever talk show.
Not the first.
On the record.
Much more successful, better produced, but
but
anyway,
not the first.
Yeah. He had Danny Trejo on this week.
Okay.
And
don't tell me they talked about Star Wars.
They did talk about Star Wars.
Oh my gosh.
So I believe
this is coming off the heels that who's
Robert Rodriguez?
Yeah.
So it's funny enough because we talked about it last week, right?
Right.
Gary Whitta, direct quote from the episode. I don't have any clout at Lucasfilm, but let me tell you something. If I could wave a magic wand right now, Danny Trejo as a badass bounty hunter of the Star Wars universe, I think a lot of people would want to see that. Whitta added, quote, I'm going to call Filoni after the show and we're going to get him on. And so far he's been able to get a lot of people on this show, so I am curious to see if his Star Wars connections end up bleeding over.
You're thinking like he's going to get Dave Filoni to like go on his talk show?
That's what he said. He said out during that interview, he's like, we're going to call Filoni and he's the next like goal for the show. Because he's had like Danny Trejo, Elijah Wood, T-Pain.
I'm sure he could. The man literally wrote Rogue One.
Yeah, like
I'm sure he could if he really wanted to. He could get. Yeah, he can get in touch with them.
Yeah, he at least knows the people, Like,
yeah.
I think he was taken off Rogue One before the reshoots happened, but he still has a name there. He's like Gareth Edwards level. Like, he did stuff for Star Wars.
Totally. I think his name is like in the credits, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still like story by Gary Whitta and his writing partner.
Yeah, so that's major. I feel like that's major clout.
Yeah, I feel like he's selling himself short, honestly.
Yeah, for real. Like, yeah, come on, man. Like, your name's still on the story thing on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Like, I think you're right. He's selling himself short.
Mm-hmm. So, directly, Danny Trejo, I guess this puts some water over our fire about Robert Rodriguez bringing him in.
Oh, no.
But
this is not the way I wanted it to go.
no, this is not the way. Um, but hey, who knows? Maybe he's already in there. Maybe he can't say anything.
I
That's
mean, like,
possible.
that's true. Like, Ewan McGregor, like, totally lied about the fact that he had been in talks with Disney for like 3 years.
Oh yeah,
Straight
and
up.
like Man of Season 2 is done shooting, so Katie Sackhoff been cast, and then like
Oh
a
yeah,
week ago it was like, here you go.
she probably, that's so crazy to think about. She had probably shot all of her scenes.
Yeah. While we were still in the early days of our Clone Wars episodes, she was probably on set.
Also, the news that Robert Rodriguez was directing an episode, that's probably like already happened.
Yeah. I think well, yeah. Similar to the Katie Sackhoff thing, he definitely has already shot his episode.
Yeah, that's
Because
just crazy.
if it's
That's
part
crazy.
of Season 2,
That's crazy to think about.
for sure, yeah. Well, that does it for Mando news, but we do have some more Disney Plus Star Wars news to discuss, Mike. So, if you know anything about television ratings, Nielsen reports for the old methods of TV and cable, Nielsen stuff doesn't really factor in with streaming services because it's a completely different beast.
True.
But sometimes Netflix reports their viewership, sometimes Hulu's like, oh, this many viewers at once. There was that weird report, I think, at the end of last year saying that, like, Netflix counts 2 minutes of viewership for anything on their service as a view. So, like,
I feel like that counts.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, saying, like, 2 minutes of an episode of Stranger Things counts as the full episode. So,
Okay.
that kind of report of, like, just counting the view numbers, that's what we're talking here.
Okay.
There's a report that came out. I can read through most of this if you want, and then we can talk about it, because this is explained much better than I can explain it personally.
Sure.
All right, so through a report from Parrot Analytics. First to become number one, Stranger Things had to beat out some Netflix. Oh, sorry. Netflix are very good at dominating social conversation and trending worldwide. Its winner, Stranger Things, came in at number 3 on May 4th as the highest viewed series on a streaming service.
Like, this is ever?
Yes.
Okay.
The number 1 spot for the week of May 4th went to Star Wars The Clone Wars with over 139.9 million average daily demand expressions, which is up.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. So within the week of May 4th, okay, so this is strictly this 1 week we're talking about right now. 139.9 million average daily demand expressions, which I'm assuming just means views.
Right.
Which is up 43.7%. It took the number 1 spot in April. This is again about Clone Wars with 67 million digital expressions. So in April, the Clone Wars on Disney Plus averaged 67 million digital expressions. And the week of May 4th, it went to 139.9 million.
Interesting. That is a huge jump.
It is. Sam Witwer, voice of Darth Maul, had a nice little comment about this report.
Oh, I'm sure he's pleased.
Oh, he's very pleased. On May 15th, he tweeted out, "I always thought this was just something we did for ourselves and that a few people liked it," in response to the incredibly high ratings and viewership.
That is a lot of people.
It is, and I'm sure it's similar to Game of Thrones when that ended, of like just curiosity, because I watched like 2.5 seasons of Game of Thrones and I was like, I'll just watch the finale. I don't care enough. But yeah, regardless, great news for the Clone Wars animation team.
Yeah, I honestly think that we'll see more of the Clone Wars.
You have to imagine that they understand they have such a ravenous base now, right?
Yeah, especially with what they made. Like,
yeah,
it was incredible. Like, it was
So
awesome.
I have to ask you, I guess, do you think that with the level of execution of season 7, right, where the first two arcs were essentially pre-planned, it wasn't any like groundbreaking new stuff.
They were filler. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Well, even like before the idea of season 7 came around, those episodes were like pre-planned already.
Yeah.
So the only new like original content that we want to, if we want to like split hairs here, is the Siege of Mandalore arc. So taking that in mind, that level of production, do you think it's more likely that we get more Clone Wars with that level of production, or an entirely new series?
I think Disney is going to make more Clone Wars with that level of production.
What's your reasoning for going that way?
I think they're greedy and they want money. And the Clone Wars is really popular, like you just said. Just look at the number of people who are like watching it, or at least like engaging in it in some way online, right?
Yeah. I feel, I don't know if this is necessarily me thinking the opposite, or just like bringing up this point to play devil's advocate, but like I could see a world where they say, hey, we're doing more Clone Wars again, and some fans are like, okay, so is it back, or are you just going to keep saying this is the final season? Because this has happened 3 times at this point.
I mean, I don't know. They'd probably find some like marketing scheme to like make it look like they're not bringing it back, but instead like remastering like unreleased episodes or something like that,
Well, that was what the Netflix season was, right? It was like the lost episode, the lost archives, something like that.
They'd do something like that. They'd be like, we're gonna take like old ideas and maybe some new ones and just like create them, and we're not really bringing it back. We're just doing it because we think it's fun and you guys like it.
Yeah,
and it makes us money.
So I do wonder though if weighing that, like they wouldn't rather just keep those fans hungry for the possibility of more down the line, and then put the resources into a show that's serving an audience that isn't being served right now, which I could see being post episode 6. We've talked about that animated show a lot because we think it's happening eventually, right?
I do. That's probably more likely. You're probably right. Like you're probably right. I don't know.
Because there is such a nostalgia for those characters, I think, in the Disney era. Like, clearly the sequel trilogy focused on it a lot. Mandalorian is exploring that territory as well. The comics, since Disney bought Star Wars, have always been filling the gaps between 4, 5, 6. Solo even. Like, I feel like rather than doing more Clone Wars and being like, hey, we're bringing it back again for a final season, or however they market it, like rather than risking maybe Boy Who Cried Wolf syndrome for their audience with that, delving into this era that we've touched on in the Disney years, but hasn't been fleshed out a ton yet.
Yeah, and I think what you were saying about keeping fans like ravenous for something almost like works better in the end.
Yeah.
Because you could just like build a lot of tension, a lot of hype around something.
Yeah. I think go ahead.
No, I think I don't know. I'm kind of split on it. I can see them kind of like doing either thing. But I do believe that they're going to invest like heavy resources in some sort of animated project that will have the quality of something like the Clone Wars, like the past season of the Clone Wars that we just saw. So
yeah, I absolutely agree. That is why I asked these questions. I think
yeah, no, I just think it's definitely something that's gonna happen. Like whether it's the Clone Wars or whether it's like this completely other new thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it doesn't matter. Like, it's gonna be
Yeah.
cool no matter what.
Mm-hmm. I'm eager to see that happen. I feel like it's a matter of time before we get that series announcement, and I do think with the tone we eventually reached with Clone Wars, with like the hunger of it, how big it was on social media, I do think it's just all going to build up to be like a learning process of what the next series ends up being, you know?
Definitely, yeah.
So they see those numbers, they know what they mean.
Yeah, no, they definitely do.
Well, next up, Mike, do you want to talk about Rey's lightsaber
Of course.
or some prequel love?
Um, let's do the prequel love last and the Rey's lightsaber now.
Okay. So, you and I were browsing the internet before the show, and
We were.
it turns out because of a social media comment from staff behind The Rise of Skywalker, Lucasfilm art director Phil Szostak, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, commented on some disappointment with Rey's lightsaber just being there right at the end, her original yellow lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
And Phil had to say on Twitter, quote, "The lightsaber was going to be in more than just a one shot at the end. There was going to be a subplot throughout the film showing Rey working on it at her bench, using the Jedi texts as a guide," end quote. You mentioned you had a little more context here.
Yeah, so there's a comicbook.com article that references the Star Wars Rise of Skywalker novelization. And apparently Rey wanted to create a dual-bladed lightsaber. Quote, "She eyed the unfinished lightsaber on her workbench. It wasn't ready yet, and the one she'd painstakingly repaired Luke's didn't belong to her. So her quarterstaff would have to suffice as a weapon, which was just fine. It had served her well on Jakku for years. In fact, someday, once she had mastered this lightsaber building business, she might design one that felt more like a quarterstaff in her hand. Familiar and hefty, two business ends, maybe with a hinge in the middle for portability."
Hinge in the middle is an interesting touch.
Yeah, I just thought that's interesting because a lot of people wanted that, and the gold color of it, the yellowness of the blade, is something that people also wanted. And if she had a double bladed lightsaber, it would be very Bastila like.
For sure, yeah. And I think we get more colors in the future, you know? Like, you and I, back in, like, October or November, we were talking about the heavy appearance of blue sabers in this new era.
Right.
And I think, especially with, like, the High Republic stuff, seeing green and yellow on the cover of that novel, like, I think we're in for more variety in the future. But with Rey's saber specifically, what's your biggest takeaway here in terms of thinking it was a fine arc to cut? Because there was so much in this movie already.
I mean, I think that they should have just done the whole entire movie differently. Like, there was a lot in it.
Yeah.
And I don't like most of it, so I'm like, why don't you just cut the rest of it? And, like, I don't know. What's up?
Yeah. I think it's an interesting sort of example of what some people don't like about the sequel era, where it's sacrificing new for filling in the old, you know? Like,
yeah,
we could have had Rey building her saber as like a subplot rather than like fleshing out Leia's saber. Like, didn't one of the Aftermath books deal with Leia's training in some capacity, and then Rise of Skywalker kind of like trampled over that?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, it's just like we've never seen really a Jedi in the films like create their lightsaber. There's like that deleted scene from Return of the Jedi, but that's it. Like, that's it. And like, I feel like it would have been cool for her to like maybe it would be like a reflection of her own like character's journey of some sort. You could tie it in somehow.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if kind of creation lends itself better to a video game narrative, because like the way it's handled in Fallen Order won't really spoil the sequence because it's a great sequence, but like the path of discovery you go on there and like the choice involved, I think is just awesome. Like they nail that.
They really nailed that.
And I feel like it's such an important thing that you should probably dedicate like at least 5 minutes, maybe 10, to do what you said, sort of like reflect on your own path. I guess like touch on like Luke in the cave sort of vibes, touch on the mirror snapping in Last Jedi kind of thing, and then go through these challenges to actually build it.
Right.
Visually, I think it would be so interesting, but I feel like it would take up too much time in a movie, maybe.
I know, but I'm saying like if they just changed the basic plot of the movie, it could, they could find a way to make it serviceable.
They totally could.
Which is my suggestion.
Question for you directly: how many times in this quarantine have you browsed like Ultimate Saber or Ultra Saber? Or, like,
that's so funny you bring that up. I was literally doing that like last night, and that's been like the 3rd time that I've done it this entire quarantine.
I definitely, I've been talking with my girlfriend a lot about like, hey, once this is over, Galaxy's Edge eventually, when we like put some money aside. Yeah. Because I just want a lightsaber, dude. I don't want to live my whole life with just the like $10 plastic ones that I had as a kid.
Yeah, what color would you get?
Probably green.
Same.
Like
same.
Green growing up was my favorite color. Right. And loved Luke's saber, prequels, loved Qui-Gon's especially, but like I wish I could say something cool like, oh yeah, I want yellow, but nah.
Honestly, yellow is my second favorite color.
Yellow is my second also. And then I think purple, but like there's only been one canon purple as far as I know, and it belongs to Mace Windu.
Yeah, purple's not up there for me. It's probably like green for sure, then yellow, then blue.
Yeah, I agree. Well.
Yeah, but I mean I think it's Ultra Sabers actually. It has they have a really great replica. It looks good. It's a replica of the Luke's Return of the Jedi lightsaber. And yeah, I've been very tempted to like just buy it.
Yeah, I want to try to hold out for the Galaxy's Edge trip, but I might just end up buying one online at some point.
Honestly, you could have 2.
I could.
You probably will.
I probably will, yeah.
Same.
Well, we have some good vibes. This is one of my favorite stories of the past, like, 2 months. Okay, I don't even think you know about this. So, on Reddit, there is a subreddit called r/Star Wars, right? And they have, let me actually check this live.
I'm a part of that.
I'm going to pull up the actual subreddit to see this, because a couple weeks ago, it was brought to the attention.
Should I pull it up as well?
You don't have to, no. It was brought to the attention of a subreddit called r/prequel memes that they were gaining on the number of subs that subscribe to just the standard r/Star Wars, right?
Yeah. I think I saw that actually.
Yeah, and like it got to the point where they were reaching out to like r/Raimi memes for like the Raimi Spider-Man movies, and like Lord of the Rings memes of like trying to get recruits to pass r/Star Wars. And there were even people, myself included, who unsubbed from r/Star Wars just to like get the numbers going up further.
Yeah.
So that was like just a fun little story going on, right? But more recently, Mike, r/prequel memes is too powerful now.
Has it surpassed r/Star Wars?
I can check live. So not yet. Prequel memes is 1,404,540. So they are trailing by about 80K. But
okay, I'm going to r/Star Wars right now live, and I'm unsubbing.
So let me tell you about what happened recently this past week. Rotten Tomatoes has been doing this summer blockbuster March Madness-esque poll of like pitting some of the biggest named summer blockbusters against each other, right, in this bracket. And
like recent summer blockbusters?
Just like all time. Like I'll give some of them. It's like Dark Knight went against Ghost, Men in Black went against Shrek.
That's a good one.
Jaws. So it
was Men in Black versus Shrek.
Where would you vote on that?
Probably Shrek.
Yeah, like Men in Black has the song, but Shrek is better.
Men in Black's pretty cool, but
it is.
But Shrek's a classic. They're both classics.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the Shrek podcast.
No, I looked back at the diagram again, and the first thing I see is Shrek 2. Shrek 2 had to face Finding Dory. It won. And then it had to face Back to the Future.
Oh. Did it lose?
No, Back to the Future won there. So, clearly, there's a logical choice being made for which one should move on, right?
Right.
It was brought to the attention of r/prequel memes that Revenge of the Sith, which had already fought The Matrix Reloaded and Terminator 2.
And won against both of those?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Was going up against Avengers Endgame.
Oh.
And I believe the initial post that said, hey, what the hell is this? Had Revenge of the Sith at like 19% of the vote, and then Endgame was blowing it out of the water, right?
Okay.
Somebody made a post on prequel memes. They were like, we got to do this. And then almost, honestly, I can try to find the actual updated percentage, but for the sake of this, it basically flipped. So, like, by the end of it, Endgame only had like 19% of the vote because prequel memes flooded this tournament.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
So wait, can you remind me once again where the tournament is on?
It's Rotten Tomatoes. I can send you the link to this if you would like to see it.
Yeah, I do kind of want to see this.
And for listeners, if you're curious about it, I will have it posted on the YouTube video at around 42 minutes into the episode. Yeah, we're down to the final 8 right now. Revenge of the Sith up next is against The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, Revenge of the Sith for sure.
We have 2 other Star Wars films in the top 8. We have Empire against Back to the Future. And
wait, we have the entire original trilogy in the top 8.
Yeah.
All right.
A New Hope against Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Return of the Jedi against Finding Nemo.
You want to go through these?
Sure. There's enough Star Wars ones we could do that.
Yeah. I mean, each one has Star Wars.
Oh yeah, you're totally right. Star Wars.
Can we complete the bracket right now?
Oh, please. Star Wars against Raiders. What are you voting? Because here's the thing.
Honestly, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, me too. Raiders is a 10. New Hope is like an 8.
Honestly, New Hope is fine, and I really love it. I do. But, like, there are better Star Wars movies than A New Hope.
Oh, absolutely. And the better Star Wars movies are all in this bracket. Return of the Jedi against Finding Nemo. I'm going Return of the Jedi on this one. I don't know where you are.
Honestly, wild card, Finding Nemo.
Really?
No, Return of the Jedi.
Oh, okay. Was that a troll, or were you actually considering that?
I was, like, truly considering Finding Nemo because I love it, but, like, I don't know how you really compare these two.
No, I mean, nostalgic for both, but I feel like comprehensively, Return of the Jedi is just better.
True. Yeah, alright, Return of the Jedi.
This one's tough. Empire Strikes Back versus Back to the Future Part 1.
It's not tough at all.
It's a little tough for me, because I think the only perfect movie that exists is Back to the Future.
Hey, man, if it's Back to the Future for you, then you choose Back to the Future. But for me, it's Empire.
Yeah. Empire is still my favorite Star Wars movie, but I'm going Back to the Future on this one.
All right.
And easily on here, Revenge of the Sith versus Dark Knight Rises.
It's the easiest one. Revenge of the Sith.
So now, Mike, we come to Return of the Jedi versus Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
I think on this one... Oh, this one's hard, actually.
I will choose Raiders of the Lost Ark on this one.
You know, I'm leaning that as well because Return is not my favorite OT film, but Raiders, again, is just like a 10. So.
Raiders is like... But Raiders isn't even the best Indiana Jones movie.
It's not the best, but it's my favorite.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It is very good.
What's your favorite?
My favorite Indiana Jones?
Yeah.
Raiders. I said best is Crusade.
Okay.
I'm
gonna choose Raiders.
Yeah, I'll go Raiders as well. And then finally, for the sake of conversation, Empire versus Revenge of the Sith.
Empire.
I'm thinking Empire as well, but Mike, with how powerful we have already seen prequel memes be, I think that Revenge of the Sith might take this whole bracket.
Probably, yeah.
So for the final two then, Empire versus Raiders, what do you have?
Empire.
Yeah, Empire.
Wait, yeah, absolutely. But didn't you have Back to the Future versus Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, but for the sake of our choices here, I gave it to Empire because it's a Star Wars podcast.
Well, I'm interested to hear Back to the Future versus Revenge of the Sith.
Back to the Future is a better movie, but Revenge of the Sith is just perfect. You know? So yeah. I'd go Back to the Future, and then it would be, I guess, Back to the Future versus Raiders for me.
Which would be Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I thought that was a fun little story. And now if you go onto prequel memes, it's all people quoting Palpatine talking about bringing peace to the first ever galactic empire, Anakin saying he's brought justice to his new empire, all this sorts of stuff. It's very funny. I recommend looking at it. If
you look at right now, Revenge of the Sith versus The Dark Knight Rises, I just voted for Revenge of the Sith, and there's 89% for Revenge of the Sith to The Dark Knight Rises 11.
I mean, one, deservedly, but two, yeah, I think it's safe to say that prequel memes has this in the bag.
Yeah.
So that's a fun little positive story about the Star Wars community I wanted to
definitely. It's looking like it's just going to be Star Wars movies in the last 4.
Yeah, I think that's probably what's going to end up happening.
Interesting. So,
I'm curious to see how it shakes out between the OT memes and prequel memes. Who has the stronger say?
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. But that brings us to the main topic we wanted to talk about today.
True.
We talked a little bit about exploring the post-6 era, right, Mike?
Yeah, we've been, on and off talking about that.
And a lot of people, and again, what I just brought up with saying if Baby Yoda gets brought to the temple at the end of Mandalorian, he ends up dying at the hands of Ben Solo. You are limited with your storytelling in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to pick your brain about where you stand on the idea of Star Wars exploring alternate timelines.
Yeah, this is an interesting question because I think I brought up the Revenge of the Sith video game to you earlier today.
Yes, that's what spawned this.
Yeah, that was the genesis for this conversation. Now, it would depend. I feel like for me, it would have to depend on the type of medium that they use to do it.
Okay.
Just to start this conversation off there. I'm not sure if I would want to see a movie of something that wasn't technically canon, right? Do you think that would even ever happen?
A non-canon film?
Yeah.
I'll say yes.
Okay.
I don't know how likely it would be anytime soon, but I could see a world where a specific filmmaker, I think it would have to be a very specific case of hey, Star Wars isn't making money anymore, maybe. So we need to do like Star Wars cross Guardians of the Galaxy or something weird like that. I don't know.
Oh my god,
Like,
I would not want to see that.
I wouldn't either, but I do think that nothing's off the table when you talk about franchises, honestly.
Yeah, I want to see Spider-Man on Tatooine.
Yeah, why not? You know?
Yeah.
Batman with a lightsaber.
Anakin
All
and
that fan
Obi-Wan.
art.
And Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting it out on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Please, that'd be fun. So you talk about not necessarily seeing it being done in a film. What avenue do you think would work best for you personally?
Comic books.
Okay.
Huge time. I mean, I'm generally like into this idea. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I am, because I think something damaging to this era of Star Wars, even before the Disney purchase, like having a galaxy that's been fully realized the way it is, of having such a strict timeline. It's like, yeah, there is Luke and Luke, but
yeah,
that was in like, that's when Luke was 34, you know, and then like 37, he has all these other weird journeys. Like, it still had a fluidity to it of like everything happened that I feel like, especially in the Disney era, has been a lot more strict. And the thing that I felt has suffered the most from that strictness is the video games. Because I'm sure you remember some of the quotes about Battlefront where like, why would you want to run around as a pink Darth Vader? You can't do that. That's not real.
Right.
So, which is like a little bit away from necessarily alternate timeline stuff, but just like the willingness to experiment with Star Wars and its characters and stories. I think sticking to one canon timeline restricts you in that way.
Yeah.
So I would want to see them experiment with it.
I would definitely want to see them experiment with it too, and I think it's been proven you can do it in the past. Like,
yeah,
just look at like The Force Unleashed.
Yeah, Force Unleashed was we did an entire episode about that, and it was like, we kind of missed that weird little like, here's something you probably didn't need fleshed out, but it is a really interesting story from a new perspective that paints Darth Vader, the Emperor, and the Rebellion in a new light, and we didn't need a movie for it. So I do think you're on the right track with saying it doesn't have to be a film. I don't think it like shouldn't not be a film.
No, I think it could be, and I think like it doesn't even have to be like a crossover to be a film. I just think it's more unlikely that it would be a film.
Yeah. There's a lot of speculation isn't the right term, and like rumor is not the right term either, because this is just a fallacy. But I've seen some YouTube channels and stuff in the past like maybe 2 weeks saying like Lucas is back on board. 2021 there's going to be a ton of retcons about some Star Wars timeline stuff. And
I've heard nothing about George Lucas coming back on board.
Yeah, I saw it posted somewhere the other day, and I like read a little bit about it. I was like, okay, this is clearly fake. But then I got thinking about it. Like,
yeah.
I think I think an avenue they could take to do like alternate timelines in Star Wars could be like, okay, so 7, 8, and 9 happened, but that's this weird, still canon, but like dark timeline where I don't know, some event that triggered Ben turning, like Sidious super died in this new timeline that Lucas is coming back in to tell, you know, like,
yeah,
I could see them do it that way where we're like, hey, new timeline for the Lucas story, which is going to be quote unquote the real 7, 8, 9, and then like we can have wacky weird adventures in the 7, 8, 9 universe we have.
But yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I think just having the ability to do alternate timelines and stuff is more effective, like in like a written medium.
Yeah.
Like I think it would just be really cool to see like a non-canon like just interpretation of like a Luke Skywalker adventure or something like that.
Yeah.
After Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Or just like even like entire like runs of comic books that are just like non-canon. I think that would just be really interesting and kind of fun. But at the same time, it's like, why would you expend those resources to make those things?
Yeah.
And make them non-canon, right? Like, why don't you just make like a canon thing?
Mm-hmm. It's tricky because like something like Star Wars, where you have a name like Skywalker that is just so marketable, you know, like be it Luke or Anakin, you can. There's like potential there, you know. It's like, here's this weird Elseworlds, going with like the Revenge of the Sith alternate video game ending, right? Here's this alternate history where Anakin survived and he killed Obi-Wan and he killed the Emperor. What does Anakin's empire look like, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like that's an interesting story you could tell, that if you just did it canon and we're like, okay, we're skipping 30,000 years in the future, some guy who's similar to Anakin in his story killed his master and then led the empire, you know? Like, I feel like, you know, like it's less... The sacrifice you make to make it canon, I feel like for fans makes it less interesting in a way, or at least less immediately grasping your attention. Because there's also been not really rumors, but like people thrown out there that Hayden Christensen's coming back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine what like Twitter would be like if one day we wake up and it's like Hayden Christensen is starring as Emperor Vader in a spin-off alternate history sequel where he never got burned, Obi-Wan is dead. Like, could you imagine what that would be like? That would be super interesting.
That would be super interesting. I guess the only way that it would work is if it were an alternate history of the Star Wars universe. Mm-hmm. Some like major thing would have to be changed in some significant way, like Anakin never being burned.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's an interesting conversation to have too, because like at the point we're at right now with the clear love of the prequels, you know, Clone Wars really rejuvenating a lot of spirit and energy into that time period. It's like the prime age to hit people with nostalgia is the age of the people that love the prequels right now. Mm-hmm. So like looking at it from a business perspective, it's difficult to capitalize on that nostalgia when your lead from the film side is burned and Darth Vader, you know, like, yeah, there's Ahsoka and we can experiment and explore her and where she was from the end of Clone Wars to the beginning of Rebels. But the more you stick to the timeline, the more granular and small scale you get in terms of what story you can tell, you know?
That's true. Really, honestly, I feel like, it would have to be something pretty spectacular that was changed. Like Darth Vader was never became Darth Vader, essentially.
Yeah.
Or what if Mace Windu never... what if Mace Windu actually arrested the Chancellor?
Yeah.
Or killed the Chancellor?
Yeah, and honestly, you know what? That actually just made me think of something else too, because of your specific phrasing. Like, Marvel does this all the time. They have since the beginning, right? Like, you talk about doing it in comics, which I think makes sense just because Marvel Comics does have their their multiverse. Mm-hmm. On Disney Plus, I believe either this year or next year, Marvel is releasing an animated series called What If? And they're shorts, like, what if Peggy Carter was Captain America? What if Marvel heroes were all dead and zombies? Like, they're experimenting with it in that way and having the actual actors from the films return to voice their animated characters.
Seriously? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so, like, I wonder if Star Wars would take this approach, you know? Like, if they do it through television rather than comics or film.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So, do you think there's potential there with What If? Because yeah, maybe alternate history for films is too much of a stretch unless it's a big grand change, like Anakin not transitioning to Vader. But like you said, the what if Mace Windu successfully arrested the Chancellor, or what if Qui-Gon didn't get stabbed? You know?
Yeah, true. I mean, like that'd be interesting. Do you think it would? Yeah. Are they like separate episodes? Like just like one episode is like one scenario, and like the next episode's like a completely unrelated scenario.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think there's so much potential there. Like clearly we have all these ideas already, and I'm sure after we're done recording we're gonna think of like 15 more. Like what if Order 66 didn't go through? What if they all defected? What if they found the chip?
True. What if everyone believed fives?
Yeah. Like I really do think that there's potential there, and I think what it's just gonna take is just a little more flexibility in terms of what's canon, and having that rigidity of if we produce it, it's canon.
Yeah.
But do you think realistically anytime soon we get stuff like this?
I think like within the next decade. I don't know if you consider that soon.
Yeah, I think when you talk about a franchise, I think that, yeah, that's pretty soon.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty soon. But yeah, I do think that we're going to get something like that eventually.
Yes, and
I think we're going to get it first in like a comic book.
I could see that.
Like something like that. Something.
Yeah, I could see a comic approach.
Yeah, and it'll be like a little bit less like it'll be smaller scale.
Mm-hmm. I think once we explore the gap between 6 and 7 fully, then we might dip into the more like, okay, so maybe revisit the prequels and tell a story about if Jar Jar didn't like make that what was it, vote of confidence or something right. In Palpatine.
No, he granted Misa grant him emergency powers.
Right. Palpatine is the one who voted no confidence in Valorum. That's what happened.
That's what happened in episode 1, and then the emergency powers happened in episode 2.
Yes. So I honestly, there's a lot of stuff for them to mine here, and even if the next decade of Star Wars films is exploring new characters, new eras, new content, I think it's safe to say we haven't seen the last of Anakin or Luke or Obi-Wan.
No, we haven't. Definitely, we're gonna see him again. Do you think? Do you think Mark Hamill would ever come back to like voice Luke Skywalker?
I think voice, yes. I think if when we get the Han Luke Leia show, I think Mark Hamill returns.
Why do you say when?
Because it's gonna happen, dude. Like, we got a sequel show, we got a prequel show. The prequel show was incredibly successful, and we have 30 years to fill in between 6 and 7. It's gonna happen.
All right.
I don't think it's gonna happen within the next year. Maybe we get an announcement before 2022, but I think it's coming.
You think he's gonna come back and voice himself though?
I think the chance is high. I think it's more likely than not.
Yeah, I agree.
If it was live action, I think Lucas would have to be the one directing.
Yeah, I think Mark Hamill's kind of fed up with Disney Star Wars.
Yeah, like, because Filoni and Lucas have that relationship where I think Lucas could put in a good word of like, hey, this guy, he's great. They probably know each other, right? Hamill and Filoni.
Definitely, I'm sure they've met.
Yeah. So like, if George gave his blessing to Mark and he was like, hey, just, it's gonna be great. I did the treatment. This guy's writing the script. You're gonna enjoy it. I think he would come back for that.
Probably. I kind of want to see Dave Filoni take like a Kevin Feige role in the Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I had something in my head, but then I forgot it.
Well, even another thing too of just Hamill returning to a character. He's repeatedly said he's done with the Joker, and then he comes back for like one more project that he's really excited about. So I think him being done with Luke, because I do think that was a headline that went around over the past month.
I remember what I was going to say.
Go for it.
Oh, they really did Mark Hamill dirty in The Rise of Skywalker. He's in one scene.
Yeah.
That's like that's upsetting. And it's like it's like a joke scene. Like
it's rough.
Not to just completely dampen on that, but
no, it is rough, you know, and I'm sure he just probably needs some time away from it, you know.
Yeah.
And voice acting, that's his thing, so I'm sure he'd be open to it.
I'm sure he would.
So, that is going to do it, though. I believe we have exhausted our well of what if scenarios.
I think we put in a good hour, though.
Yeah, for sure. Good episode.
Yeah.
I hope listeners, I hope you enjoyed. If you have any of your own what if scenarios you want to see Disney or Lucasfilm explore,
drop them in the comments.
Yes, or if you're a listener on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any of the other podcast services, you can reach out on Twitter. Let us know at Jedi Knights JC or our individual Twitters. Mike, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mike P. Connors.
Very nice. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Chris N. Buckley.
Click a like, subscribe, donate to the Patreon. Yeah.
Hit them all.
Let's do it.
Very nice.
Smash that like button.
Smash it.
Smash it.
Or dislike if YouTube sees it as engagement, you know.
But we
doesn't see it as a pro or con.
We prefer if you smash the like button.
Yeah, please. Well, that's gonna do it for this week. Everyone, stay safe. Enjoy Star Wars content. I'm sure we're gonna get Mando news for next week, but
I'm sure we will. Yeah.
Until then, we're fine. Everything's fine. How are you?
May the Force be with you.
General Kenobi.